Welcome to the next episode of More to Me. I'm your host, Kanchana Banerjee, and this is the series where I talk to men and women who have pivoted from conventional careers to following their passion. Today, I have a very interesting guest. Her name is Shrutika. Shrutika, after 11 years of corporate world and her last stint being with none other than McKinsey, left it all to become a professional singer. Welcome to More to Me, Shrutika. It's wonderful to have you here.
Yes, wonderful to be here.
So, Shrutika, tell me something. How did the decision to leave a solid corporate career, to leave that and to venture into the world of music, how did that come about?
Even while I was working, I knew that there was like I really enjoyed doing music. I would try to sneak in times during weekends to, go and do a little bit of music, record a couple of songs.
Hmm.
But then it came to a point where I realized that I was actually enjoying those weekends quite a bit, and that it was not just a hobby, but it
Hmm.
was something that I wanted to be good at. I really felt that there was something very specific that I wanted to achieve with my music. And I realized that I need to be treating something that I enjoy so much as a job as well. I mean, when you start doing well, then people will come out of the woodwork and be like, I always knew, that this is something that you wanted
Yeah.
to do, and I always was watching from the
Huh.
sideline, wishing that you would do it. But I don't know how well it was really known how
Hmm.
much I really liked to perform.
Hmm.
Everybody knew that I liked to sing. Everybody knew that I liked to, that I was generally into music.
Hmm.
But I don't think people had the full concept. And frankly, I don't think even I had the full concept of just how much I really enjoy being a performer.
What was that moment, that trigger, which made you decide कि बस अब बहुत हो गया, now I want to pivot? And my second question is, what was the reaction of your colleagues, of your peers, of other people when you told them that I'm leaving this cushy, well-paying, fantastic job that anybody else would give an arm and leg for, and I'm going to become a singer? So two questions.
So I think the first thing about, the trigger, I think that is, I would actually go as far as to say that I think that's a common misconception,
Hmm.
that there's always a trigger and there's that like one moment. Because to be
Ah,
honest, never one moment. It is a collection of very small moments where you keep looking for signs, you keep, trying out something, seeing it works, and then, you talk yourself into like, hey, if this worked, maybe that would work. If this worked, maybe that would work. And then before you know it, you go from, maybe doing one open mic to saying, okay, sure, I would love to open for you as a
yeah.
musical artist, to one day saying, hey, why don't I put on my own show? So there's
Ah.
like a lot of little decisions and moments where you are constantly convincing yourself that the decision you have made is right. But the definitely, and one thing I also want to say is that it wasn't that I really got sick of the corporate world. I wouldn't say that. People
Hmm.
like to say that, oh, your story is one that, like, oh, you gave up the corporate world. I was like, actually, I didn't. I loved the corporate world. I loved the perks. I loved
Hmm.
the creative, because I was in a creative field. I was a creative strategist with creative agencies. So
Hmm.
I was getting all my output, right? It wasn't that I got sick of it. It's just that I realized, hey, if this is something I like and I'm good at, why don't I just try being good at something else which I also like?
Hmm.
Right. So there was a good overlap between, for almost 1.5 years I was doing music and consulting at the same time.
Okay.
This is exactly what I mean by there wasn't
Huh.
a trigger,
Huh. Huh.
multiple triggers along the way.
Hmm.
So my colleagues, in terms of the reaction that people had, I think definitely the first reaction people always have is, initially they'll be like, oh yeah, you should do it, you should, like, oh, absolutely, you should do
Hmm.
it. But when it to get real,
Yeah.
when you go and them, actually, so, I said no to this project because I want to do music, or oh, I decided to give up my job because I'm going to do music.
Hmm.
Then you see it's like, oh, really? Like, yes, oh, really? And then they have this like image of, would I be able to live without the monthly kaching? You
Huh.
know, uh,
And
and
their
and
and
it
their
is
and their enthusiasm is frozen. till then they were being
Exactly.
very enthusiastic, and then it's just frozen. Yeah.
Yeah, when it becomes real, then they're like, "Did you think this through?" And they're like, "But maybe you should just take like a project on the side." No, no,
Yeah.
and then and then like, no, but you have to keep hustling, and even when you tell them good news, like
Yeah.
even when I tell people that, "Oh, I did this show and I did a sold out show," yeah, yeah, but you have to keep hustling and you have to
Um,
keep getting. I hustled, buddy. I made a victory. Listen to what I'm saying.
I know.
Everything I'm saying is not necessarily like,
Yeah.
just like a artist telling you how hard their life is.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the most important things that you will learn, that I have at least learned, is that if you want to make this about the destination,
Mm.
then you're not having any fun
Mm.
at all. You have to find a way to enjoy the journey as it is going on. Like you have to find a way to enjoy the ups and the downs,
Yeah.
and tell yourself, listen, this is good enough, man. At least I'm getting the chance to do this. But
Yeah.
if you're going to wake up every morning and be like, tomorrow will be my big break, tomorrow will be my big break, then every day is just going
Mm.
to be hell.
By now, I've interviewed a number of people, and everyone has very interesting comments to make. So, one of the first guys that I interviewed, he said that, if you try to justify this decision by opening an Excel sheet, it will never work, because no Excel sheet or no logical debate points you towards leaving your job and following your passion. This is something which you have to jump in and then figure your way out. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I think when I also started, like my initial goal was just do it. That's it. That was my goal. My goal was just do it. That's it. That's about it. And then
Yeah.
slowly, 3 months later, it became like do it well. And then 6 months later, it's like do it and earn some money, maybe. And then a year, maybe it was like do it so well and earn enough money that you don't have to do it for 3 months and it's still fine.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
Uh, that is how the goals actually, like, that is literally what my goals look like, right? My goals are not anything concrete because it is such an up and down, like on any
Yes.
given day. Even the day that we spoke, for
Hmm.
example, right? I had a fabulous show. You came and said hi. I met so many other interesting people. You would think it was like the best day of my life,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
The way back, I got a rejection from a show that I had applied to, and they said that no, sorry, we won't be able to program you. There was a deadline that I was supposed to make that I missed.
Hmm.
And I was just like crestfallen,
Hmm.
literally on the cab on the way back from that show,
Okay.
right? So you would think that, I mean, what could possibly bring her down on a day like this? But there are always things,
Hmm.
right? And I will tell you, my corporate experience is such an asset, honestly, because I can't help but look at myself
Hmm.
as an entrepreneur more
Hmm.
than an artist. Don't look at myself as just, hey, I'm a singer. I don't look at myself. I look at myself as somebody who wants to be in the arts.
Hmm.
Now, wanting to be in the arts can be anything because I have a very wide variety of skills. So I can also be, the best, funniest MC that you could possibly want. I could be a great singer. I could be a great showman for a band, and you have to sit down and figure out what are all these skills that you have and how are each of them sellable and
Hmm.
marketable, because there is an audience for everything. Even
Of
the most
course.
ridiculous people in the world have millions of followers on
Yeah.
Instagram. So gone are those days where there's like one way to be good at something.
Of course.
So this person was absolutely right. Like you have to start and just hope that you're going to figure it out along the way.
Hmm. Is there anything
Yeah.
you miss about your job, about your steady job? And when I've asked this question to different people that I've interviewed, and they've come up with some hilarious answers. So one person said, he was in the entertainment industry for 25 years. He said, वो जो फिल्म फेयर का जो फ्री पास मिलता था ना, वो नहीं मिलता है. Acha, then like another person who was in the banking industry for the longest time, he said, when I chucked up my job and I started he started a trekking and hiking company because he loves being outdoors. He said, I really miss the free business class travel. ये बड़ा pinch करता है. So is there anything that you miss about your job?
Well, he stole my answer, but yeah, the business class travel was a hit for
Yeah.
sure. I think it's definitely a hit. But I think more than that also was just the sheer, it was like also the hotel stays. Like the hotel
Mm.
stays, because you were experiencing all these different cities, but in the
Uh,
best possible.
yeah.
Like no matter which city you went to, you were staying in a five-star hotel, right?
Yes. Yes.
Now, if you want to go to like Indore, or if you want to go to, even Bombay, for example, and you're going to Bombay and you're staying in a place that is Bombay, as
Mm.
opposed to going to Bombay and you're staying in a five-star hotel on Nariman Point,
Yeah.
like it completely changes the experience, right? So when I went back to Bombay the first time after I left my job, I was like, wait a second, why am I not feeling like royalty right now? Like, what's going on? Like, why do I feel like one of the people right now? Like, what's going on? So that
Yeah.
was definitely something that like takes you
Of
by
course.
surprise. And yeah, like that, and just the perks. Honestly,
Just the
it's
parts.
just the perks, because you miss the safety of like every 30th or 31st you are
Yes.
getting money in your bank account.
Yeah.
Like, and it is honestly like your brain needs to be rewired, because when your brain looks at a figure in your bank account on the 17th of the month, when
Hmm.
you are in a corporate job, you
Hmm.
automatically do the math and say, okay, this just needs to last me 17 days.
Hmm.
And I'm fine. But when you're like completely doing your own thing, when there is no steady source of income, there are sources of income, but when there's no steady source of income, then when you look at a figure on the 17th of the month, you don't know if that money in the bank account is supposed to last you for 13 days, or if it's supposed to maybe last you for 39
Hmm.
until you get the income, right? And you also definitely you miss the fact that when you do something, you get paid for it.
Of course.
Like honestly, that's the thing you miss the most, because
Hmm.
the payment timelines that exist for so many freelancers across industries. I'm
Yeah.
not even talking about just musicians, designers,
Yes, yes. Oh
MCs.
my God. Tell me about it. It's
You're
crazy.
just, yeah, you just work on good faith. You
Yeah.
work
When when they
in
want when they want you to deliver, they want it yesterday. And the payment will
exactly.
come after 90 days. Matlab, it
Yeah,
was
exactly.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, I have been on the other side. So I have
Yes.
worked agencies, right? I have been the person who's told a designer that, look, you cannot ask for money short less than 90 days, because that is our payment cycle.
Hmm.
Because even I'm getting paid by the company that I was working for in like 80 days, and then 90 days I would transfer the designer. So I've been on the other side as well. And I know that the people who are not paying us are also genuinely not paying us because they don't have the funds. It
Hmm.
does not make it any easier
True.
to know that.
So what is it that stops you from making the reverse flip?
Like going back,
Yeah.
honestly, it's just too much fun. It's just too
Hmm.
much fun. Like it's just, I am, again, this is a major privilege because I'm getting to do so much of exactly what I want to do, because
Hmm.
I have what of 10 years and 11 years of savings. I am getting to literally do exactly what I want to do,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So like for example, when I do even my shows, I do like concept shows. Now
Yes.
when I was working in agencies, I would come up with these kinds of concepts. I would very often come up with like fake ad ideas,
Hmm.
that like, imagine if you have a pen and what's the funniest way you would sell a pen.
Hmm.
uh, now that I have my own show, I can try all these ideas out for myself.
Hmm.
I can literally do whatever the hell I want. I can say the Ladyfinger show stationary edition, and there's nothing you can do or say to stop me. Like if I get a brand which creates stationery to sponsor me, I will
Hmm.
create a station edition, and I will literally give papers out to everyone in the audience and tell them to give me a word, and I will write a song on the spot. And at some point, I'm gonna like be singing a song while people are throwing pens and papers at me. Like, you can't stop me. I want to do it,
Hmm.
I will do it.
Hmm.
So the reason that I think I have not really considered going back right now is because I'm thinking of myself as the ultimate brand.
Hmm.
I'm thinking of myself as the ultimate product. So I am just using all the skills that I have, but I am using them on myself.
On yourself.
So
That's amazing.
so So it doesn't really feel like I'm no longer in touch with my corporate side or in touch with my marketing side, because I'm employing those very skills day in and day out, which is why I don't have a second free, because there is always something to do.
Mm.
There is somebody to reach out to. There's always somebody to publicize yourself to. There's always some new narrative to write about who
Yeah,
you are as an artist.
of course.
And reach out to 20 publications, reach out to 20 musicians who you may want to collaborate with.
Mm,
So
mm.
if you're going to think of yourself as just an artist, then you will run out of work very fast. But if you think as yourself of someone who wants to make a living doing art, then
Yeah.
you will do whatever hell is needed to make that living.
So, my next
Yeah.
question is that like why have you called yourself Ladyfinger?
So, first of all, it's Lady Fingers.
Yeah, Lady Fingers. Okay.
But I mean, there are a lot of different answers. But honestly, when it comes to like these types of things, like especially nomenclature and anything which is permanent, even my tattoos, for example, very often I go with just the voice that comes from inside, and I don't question it. It's like don't look a gift horse in the mouth, like very simply. So Ladyfingers came to me on one random day
Acha.
during the pandemic, when I was doing this like 13-day song challenge, where like you had to write one song every day.
Hmm.
And I actually doing that, and 5 of those songs ended up in my first album that I
Hmm.
released. And that day, like I was creating a channel on Instagram, and I was just like, like I want to be like, and I was watching like a Lady Gaga video, and I was really in love with Lady Gaga. And I just had this mental image of me walking in and somebody being like, "Lady," and I was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Lady fingers," and it just came out, and it just felt so right. It's like, when you're playing Tetris and
Ah.
that piece fits into that exact piece, and you're like, yeah, I won. That's what it felt like when I said Lady
Uh-huh.
Fingers. So I was just like, this fits. And since then, like, there have been moments where I have questioned, is this the
Huh.
right name? Not the right name? Does this
Hmm.
communicate what it's to be? But now, like, I can't imagine myself being called anything else.
So tell me, like, I mean, what has changed about you ever since you decided to listen to this inner calling and follow your passion? How have you changed?
Mm, one thing that has changed, uh, one thing that has changed for sure is that my comfort with ambiguity has improved a
Hmm.
lot.
Hmm.
I've become a lot more comfortable with not knowing.
Hmm.
I've become more comfortable with being unsure and being uncertain of what's coming.
Hmm.
Right. I've learned to, when things go bad, I read this beautiful quote that day that actually said that, what if you were to tell yourself that the next 99 rejections that you receive are the next 99 rejections that you receive are what you need to go through to get to that one win when you
Hmm.
make it. So then wouldn't you actually wake up every morning waiting for your next rejection just so that you could get closer and closer and closer to the
Yeah.
100th win?
Yeah.
Um, I think that is something that has happened, that I've found a way to be a lot more comfortable with like shit going wrong and stuff like that.
Hmm.
The second thing that's happened is that I've become, definitely I've like let go a lot. I think
Hmm.
that is very
Hmm.
important, because even at least in my own act, that may not be true for everyone else, but for me, Ladyfingers is very much an extension of who I am. Ladyfingers always existed in who I was as a person, but she's a subset of who I am, but she's a very, very powerful subset. So it is definitely made me like, when I channel Ladyfingers, then I'm just a lot more confident.
Hmm.
I'm a lot more like sassy. Nothing really phases me. I don't get tense. I don't get nervous. And I have seen this switch literally, because on the stairs up to the stage, I will be flipping because I can't hear something, I can't do something, everybody's looking somewhere else. And the moment I see that mic and the moment I
Huh.
have that mic in my hands, it just completely changes. So I just become this completely different person. It's almost like a I don't know, like if it's like a euphemism for,
Hmm.
blackouts almost. Like
Amazing,
because you just
amazing. How amazing is that? And and this brings me to the question that, that the what the series is about, that as you said, that it has just set you free away from your inhibitions, your fears, etc. And this is so true for today's generation, because we are headed towards a disruptive environment, with AI becoming such an important force in our lives. All the labels and the tags and the designations that we cling on
Yeah.
to, they're going to become redundant. So what is your take on that, about people holding on to titles, about labels and identity beyond that?
Yeah, I think I'll quote this. I don't know when I became this pretentious person who has a quote for every answer, but now I am apparently. Maybe we blame it on ladyfingers. I don't know, but to quote Stephen Fry, one of my favorite writers and comedians, he actually said this wonderful thing in one of his bits where he said that I don't define myself as a noun. I always define myself as a collection of verbs.
Hmm.
So I prefer to, of course, in colloquial, it may come out, but I prefer not to think of myself or speak of myself as an artist, but just someone who does art, right?
Hmm.
Someone who makes music, someone who writes songs, someone who maybe engages the crowd, but at the same time, what that really does is that it frees you up to add so many other things to your repertoire.
Hmm.
Because I'm also the person who makes fantastic PowerPoint presentations. I'm also the person who does a really good job of convincing chief
Hmm.
marketing officers that they need to invest money in like the next harebrained scheme that I come up with, right? So uh, these are all skills that I'm really good at, like Excel sheets. Like I
Hmm.
don't know how else to put it, and this is something that really like really freaks out artists that I'm with, because they're always like, what is an Excel sheet? And I'm just like, wait, I will tell you, I will tell you. It's not just artists, there are like full-fledged people in this world who have gone their entire lives without learning Excel. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, how get this is so amazing. Because for me, like I can't
Hmm.
function without Excel sheets. Like, even for our interview today, there is an Excel sheet with my entire calendar where I went and said, okay, so 2 to 4, and this is what I am doing. And then
Okay.
after need half an hour to like wind down, and then you can pick up something else. So but I think to answer your question, I think the key to surviving in an age where we are essentially being replaced, and there's no problem. I don't have any issue like admitting that, because it is what is happening.
Yeah.
Of course, there are so many things that are never going to be replaced. Or when I say never, I mean in the recent future. We're not going to suddenly not have artists. We're not going to suddenly not have psychotherapists. We're not going to suddenly not have doctors. There are
Hmm.
so many that are never ever ever going anywhere, not to mention all manual labor, right? But I think what we can do as individuals is firstly upskill,
Hmm.
like very important. We cannot run away from AI. I think being able to sit with AI and make it do what you want is a skill in itself.
Hmm.
And every time there is a new model that comes out, like I myself have spent almost a month and a half just working with Gemini, with working with GPT, working with Claude, that I'm currently obsessed with. And I really depend on Claude for everything to do with strategy and execute strategy, basically. Then the second thing that I think we can do is that you need to sit down and break yourself into a list of skills and like tasks that you can
Yeah.
do, literally tasks,
Huh.
right? If you find that you're very good, for example, at coming into a very hectic situation and making sense of it for everyone there, then maybe you deserve to be a McKinsey consultant,
Of
right?
course.
uh, if you are somebody who is really good at you know engaging people when, like, you're at a function, even if it's like at a family function, for example, and
Hmm.
people always say, crack a joke, you do this, maybe you need to be an MC. you
Hmm.
know you could even be somebody who's really good at talking to AI and getting AI to do what you want, and you could be a prompt engineer,
Hmm.
right? So I think that is the key. The key is to figure out what are the various myriad ways that you can do
Hmm.
things in that are sellable and marketable.
And when people are talking about AI taking over, all the
Hmm.
creative spheres, creative work, and etc., is this a good time to get into music? To be, I mean, how is it to be a musician in the, in the current scenario where it's being said that AI can create music, and you won't be able to distinguish whether it's human content or AI developed content.
I mean, that is true. You're absolutely right. Even now, like if we see any song that sounds too good, or if you see a video that looks too good, the first question is like AI. Is that
Mm,
AI? Having something, and I'm sure that there are people who are facing existential,
yeah.
crises with this. I personally I've not let that affect me yet because
Mm,
my focus is on live performances. And live performances is not something that
yeah.
AI is
Yeah.
really immediately be able to replace.
Mm,
The same way that, I feel that if you are going to become a musician right now or get into any of the forms of art, you do have to understand that the only way that you're going to survive is if you go and meet your fans.
mm,
uh, you cannot be an artist sitting behind a screen or sitting behind your canvas and just saying I'm going to create and I'm going to just send it out and hope for the best. Like that is not going to work for
mm,
sure. Because yes, people need to the art needs to be tangible, you need to be known. And I think one thing that people can definitely try to do, unfortunately it's not something that comes naturally to so many of us, but we do have to start oversharing.
mm.
We do have to start oversharing about our lives on social media. We do have to start sharing about this was my journey and this is what I did today and this is the art and this is why I created the art. Because even if AI can create the art, it may not be able to create the story behind the art.
Yeah. So with this,
Yeah.
I come to the last question of today's session. Complete this sentence for me, Shrutika,
Okay.
that there is more to me because.
I don't know what's next.
Hmm.
That's why. Because I
You're
can't.
always ready for a surprise.
Yeah, and there is more to me because I genuinely don't know what's coming next. Like
Hmm.
there's no way you can break me down and define me and codify
Hmm.
exactly I'm going to come up with next, because it's a surprise to me as well. And I think that's the joy in making
True.
any sort of art, even living life.
Hmm.
You have no idea what's coming. Is the mistake that we make
Hmm.
is planning.
Yeah.
To be honest, plans are such a colossal waste of time. Like models, I agree with. I agree with making models. I agree with saying, okay, if then, if this, then that. I agree
Hmm.
with those types of models. But plans, this is what I'm going to do. And then, this is what I'm going to do next. And then this is what I'm going to. Life has got bigger plans than you can even imagine.
Hmm. True. So if someone,
Absolutely.
someone wants to pivot to following their passion, their inner calling, what would your advice be to them?
Um, my advice to anyone who wants to follow their passion in this day and age is that if you intend to follow it just as a hobby, if you intend to follow it because you love doing it, it's
Hmm.
not going to be enough. If you want to follow your passion, you're also going to have to work extremely hard, treat yourself as an entrepreneur, treat your art sometimes as a business,
Hmm.
and not live in the misconception that if your work is good enough, then it'll speak for itself, because you are going to have to speak for your work.
Great. Lovely. So, with that, we come to the end. It was such a delight talking to you. And it was so much fun listening to you and watching you perform at Quorum. I look forward to attending more of your live shows. And I was going through your Instagram reels. Guys, check out her Instagram reels. As she says, it's called the Lady Fingers. And amazing, amazing content there. And if she is playing at any place in your city, next to your home, far away, whatever, get yourself a ticket and go and watch her and support this amazing artist who I'm so glad I found in Quorum. Thank you, Shrutika. Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you so much, Kanchana. It was so much fun, so much
Thank
more fun than I could have ever imagined. So thank you
thank
for that.
you.